Our speakers tonight, we have Marc Rueter, Tableau Senior Director of Product Portfolio, and he's going to show us some very cool new features that are launched out and hopefully give us a sneak peek of things that no one else has seen. Maybe, hopefully. We also have Chris Toomey from Mapbox, our gracious hosts, and he's a solution architect, and he's going to be showing off some, what are you going to be doing, the fabulous Alteryx workflows? Okay. Anyway, I'll be showing some awesome Mapboxness in Tableau, so I'm excited. And then Tableau Social Ambassador Alexander Mao is going to show us some practical applications of the parameter and set action features in Tableau, so we'll get a little hands-on training at the end. So very excited to have everyone here. Again, my name is Anya. I'm the TUG kind of chair. So if you ever have questions or want to reach out about resources in the Bay Area, you just respond to the host for any of these events and that email will go to me. If you ever want the opportunity to present, we'd love to have people volunteer to come speak. We have Lila is going to be speaking at Netflix in January. So we're really super excited to have all of you come speak and show us how you're using Tableau in our community. So thank you so much. Without further ado, Marc Rueter. Oh, and sorry, and thank you for Mapbox for the booze and the Chinese food and the yay!
Thank you. Here we go. So let me get this locked away, maybe. How do you, I don't want to make all you guys super loud. We're going to try it. Hang on. All right. We're in. Okay. So put together a little bit of a talk here to hopefully convince you to change, right? That's the whole part. I was running, I don't know, I had this whole big spiel planned, but decided that we all know that change is the only constant. That's the thing that the Greeks figured out long, long ago. This guy, Heraclitus, said that change is the only constant. But I do find that it's really hard for us to change, right? A lot of times it's easy, like you might have changed the route that you came here. You might have decided to choose a different elevator because one closed in front of you, right? We change all the time, but it takes this external stimulus for that to happen quite often. We don't just choose to change. And this is typically around behaviors as well. One of the things that I've noticed quite a bit when I look at people using Tableau, when I do one of my favorite activities, which is spelunking through Tableau Public and getting inspired by that, I see people doing things that are no longer necessary, that there's much easier ways to do them, but they might not be familiar with the new techniques. They might not know that there's new features that exist. They might not have the latest version of the software. There's all kinds of reasons that this happens. But there's also a big reason, and that's our brains are lazy, right? They don't want to do extra work. And they've actually figured out that the way our neurons fire, it's a very expensive operation to fire them sequentially, right? One communicating to the next and down the line. So our neurons actually create circuits based on repeated behaviors so that they can fire that whole circuit at once. And it's a very more efficient operation. So our brains want to do the same thing over and over again. They're kind of tuned for that very easy. So we have to like consciously work to break those habits, right? To change our behaviors and build these new circuits in our brains. It is still possible, right? The old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that is definitely not true. So with that, I want to dive into some of the things that hopefully I can share with you, either some new techniques or some new ways of looking at the problem space, and maybe give you a couple little tips and shortcuts and other things to work on as well. The majority of the time that I'm going to spend is going to be doing demonstration, hopefully, if everything goes well, and a little bit of this PowerPoint stuff. So without further ado, let's dive into a little bit of demo. I've broken this into 3 segments. The first one is just a little bit about dashboards and how we go about building those. Then we're going to talk a little bit about sets, and that's with a T, S-E-T-S. And then a little bit, I saw you guys roll your eyes, right? Like not another one of those lectures. And then we'll finish up with some parameters as well. And these are not going to be the big complex things that some of you know me for. They're going to be hopefully more approachable, lighter weight, and inspire you to do new things on the back end. All right, so here we are on a little dashboard, and somehow I need to hide this. I have a panel that you can't see. I want to get it out of the way. All right, simple dashboard. This is actually just one of our samples that we haven't changed in a while. But there are a couple of new things a bunch of new things that we've been adding to dashboards over the last year and a half. We started changing our approach from like a purely analytical, multifaceted display of your data that has rich integration among that data. We thought we had that one nailed pretty well. So we started expanding a lot more to what we see our customers doing a whole lot. Am I not doing something right? It's not tall.
Oh, that's as tall as it gets.
I can get shorter though. That's kind of the nice thing. And we started building more features to enable the types of things that we saw you doing. We saw all kinds of wonderful hacks and workarounds and other things, and we said we really need to put those capabilities into the product. And our goal is to help you develop what we call an app-like experience inside of a dashboard. So give you more controls, more interactions, more flexibility in the layout, more control over the layout, better mobile capabilities, all kinds of things that we've been piling into dashboards so that you can have the expressiveness and freedom that you need to. And the list is really huge. You can go back through our what's new pages and see all the changes in the dashboard areas, and it's quite extensive. I'm just going to point out a couple of them. One of my favorites is this new layout tab that we added. And by new, I'm saying like in this last year and a half, not new as of today. I am using version 2019.4. It's in beta right now. I guess I like to point that out. So if you want to give it a try, you're welcome to do that. But again, the things I'm talking about are new over the last little bit in this section. I like the layout tab. Gives me all the information about whatever zone I've selected. If they are floating zones, I can actually change the position exactly right here. If I need an exact position or height and width, I can just type that right in. It's really quite nice. We've added all the padding controls. And then this is kind of my favorite little thing here that helps me navigate through some complex dashboards. It's just a little hierarchy. You can click through there. Oh, I forgot to change this. Oh, no, I did change it. Okay. One of the things that we've added is the ability to rename these little things. Yeah, there we go. There, rename dashboard item. You can do it right in place too, but I do it this way. And you can see it's highlighted over here on the side. And that's going to be my filter panel, let's say. And I can give it a name. So now when I go back through here and I'm looking at all these different layers in my dashboard, it's a lot easier to find the thing that I might want to be selecting. And it's interactive, right? If I click on something over here, it highlights that particular thing on the other side. Now, why might I want to name it? Again, it makes it easier to navigate, but also we're starting to add controls for targets. And so if I want a button, let's say, to target a particular zone, I would be able to name it so I can easily find the one that I want it to go to. We already hooked this up with web zones. So you can have multiple web pages now on a dashboard, and you can target your actions to which one you want it to go to. You'll see more and more functionality coming that starts targeting these particular zones. And in fact, one of those that I want to show right now is, I went too far, the ability to add some more flexibility to these zones. So here I'm just holding the shift key. If you guys don't know how to do that, it takes my zone from floating or from fixed to floating. I'm just going to make it really big. We have a new option for any zone that we have. Now by zone, just so we're clear, I'm meaning one of these types of zones over here, not just a standalone image. You have to put it in one of these containers in order to make it work. But we've added an ability to add a little button to toggle the display of this. Can you guys see that in the room, or should I zoom in? Is it working okay? I forget how to zoom. All right, so I'm not going to zoom in. Oh, yeah. No, on the Mac, you can usually zoom just by holding down one of the buttons and zoom, but it might be stopped because of that, of the meeting info. All right, anyway, I'll just click it there, add show a hide button. I get this nice little button. I can drag it anywhere I want to. I like it better in the corner over there. And then when I click the button, the little zone goes away, right? And then it pops back up. Now this is really nice because it declutters my dashboard, right? A lot of times people try really hard to put lots of controls for the people onto their dashboards, which is very helpful. It makes the dashboard answer a whole bunch of different questions, but it also makes it a lot harder for people to consume the content that's on there because they have to make sense of all these different visualizations and controls and buttons and other things that are on the dashboard. So being able to hide one takes a lot of that clutter out of the way. It also opens up a lot more capabilities for putting instructions on the dashboard, for example, or being able to toggle on the details or detailed visualizations if people might want those, or get them out of the way for people that don't. It also means that maybe I could put more controls on without cluttering up the initial dashboard. So for example, here, I might want to throw on another filter here so that I can filter my subcategories. Right, and that just pops right into that zone, and I can drag it around, fill it up. Well, while I'm looking at this, another thing that we've added, this as a hierarchy, right? Category to subcategory is a hierarchy. We added the capability to have the values in that quick filter just relative to its parents, right? So just relative to the other values in the hierarchy above it. That's the default now if you show quick filters from a hierarchy. If you have not built a dashboard in about the last year or so and you have these hierarchies, I would really encourage you to go back and turn this button on. It makes dashboards a whole lot faster because it's a much simpler query to send to the database to get the subcategories just based on the categories versus based on all the other filters that are in play. And it also gives users typically the type of interaction that they're looking for. In the past, if it was relevant to all values, things would disappear from their list and they wouldn't know why because something else was filtering it out. Now it behaves much more the way that they would expect. So again, go make that change right away if you have a lot of hierarchies, filters on your dashboards. Okay, so I'll add another type of filter on here. Okay, maybe, there we go. And this one, I'm going to show the filter, which is an action. Now, this is automatically named. There's an action here that if I click on a region, it automatically filters the dashboard. But notice what's happening to my quick filter over here. If I show that action filter, we're going to get some amber alerts, it looks like. All right, thank you. So this is something that we wouldn't normally do, is to put the state of an action onto the dashboard, but it's something now that I have the extra room or space to show this filter. It might be something that's nice so that if people aren't sure what the state of the dashboard is, when they open up their little filter control panel, could show them all the things that are filtered, right? Both the actions and the quick filters that they might have set and other things like that. So that's just a fun little bit. You can show the quick filters for actions as well. All right. We can also customize this button. I'm just going to go there and edit the button. This isn't the full tutorial, but I do like how easy it is just to grab some other image that you might have on your desktop. I have a little filter icon here. So now that maybe hints to people that there's going to be some filters, and if they click on that, then they get access to all those filters. What are some other things you can do? Again, have text that pops up. So if you want extra instructions on there, a lot of people put instructions or comments or explanations of different things. One of the things that I saw a customer do was akin to this, where they put a little, they didn't use this icon, but they put a little button on, and they had a little image that popped up with all of their markup that they wanted people to be able to see. right? So this is just, I used a little markup tool to create another layer. It's just a PNG image, and I told that to pop up when somebody clicks the thing, right? So a little bit of instructions in line, a little bit of exciting stuff going on, and some concern down there. One of the other capabilities we added are these buttons. I'm not going to demonstrate the buttons. This is, right now, it's just a navigation button. It allows you to move to another sheet, like the next sheet in line, or go back home, which is a very common thing that people want to do on dashboards. And a lot of you have figured out all kinds of wonderful hacks to do that, different workarounds. This is another one that if you have those hacks in play, I would encourage you to go and change those as soon as you can to use these actual buttons. It not only performs a whole lot better than the old hacks, but it also behaves the way that users expect it, with the way it clicks and doesn't stay highlighted, or other kinds of things that are a little bit of annoyances with the old hacks. I forgot to point out a couple of things on my little floater here. That's why I have notes here to keep me honest. I mentioned that we have the layout capability, and it allows us to, I'm going to double click there and select the whole thing. For floating things, right, I can type in an exact position if I want to, and it will move it for me, right? I could fix the width and height, or do any of that kind of stuff. One of my favorites, though, is I can now just nudge it. I'm just hitting the up key, right, and the down key, so you can just visually nudge these guys to see where they are instead of trying to drag and drop. And if you hold the shift key down, then we do a bigger nudge, so you can move it pretty quickly if you wanted to. So just some little comforts that go there. And the other guy that we have is the grid. So does that show up on the screen a little bit there? There's a little blue set of grid paper behind it now. And that allows me to align things very precisely with each other. It's just, again, a nice little helper that helps you get the exact look and feel for your dashboard. And that's fun, because once you turn it on, you can just hit the G button and it goes on or off very rapidly, so it doesn't get in your way. So those are just a couple of the layout type things that hopefully will give you a little bit more control or precision, exactness to get the layouts and the look and feel that you want to. Again, we have the buttons and these new collapsible containers, or show hide the container. And I'm going to show you a couple of more like analytical features through these, what we call set actions and parameter actions, that we can add them to our dashboards to get some more functionality as well. All right, so let's go to my next sheet. And I'm going to do a little, I know there's some people that are brand new to Tableau in the room as well, so I'll try and give a little bit of a base for you as well. Here I just have a simple profit analysis where I have profit by state, and I click on it. It's just used as a filter so I can see the details on the side. Fantastic, super easy to set up. But when I click on one of these states, I lose the whole context of, well, was that thing profitable or unprofitable overall, right? So, you know, chairs is selling really well here. Was it very profitable overall, or is Oklahoma an exception, right? I don't know, because I just lost all that context. So there's a technique, it's called brushing, that allows us to keep the context and show the details of the particular item we selected. So in this case, instead of filtering something, we want to keep all the data and just kind of overlay the data that's relevant for my selection over here. And we do this using sets. And sets are very powerful because instead of just filtering the stuff out, they create two buckets, things that are in my selection and the things that are outside of it, in and out. And so I can keep that other data and do stuff with it if I want to. I can use it for calculations. I can use it to change my viz. I can use it for all kinds of wonderful things. So let's go do that. I'm going to, again, move this out of the way because I need to click behind it. Yeah, I'm just going to go to the sheet. We're going to create a set based on the states that are there. So let me find my states and create a set. Now, when I create sets, I always like to pick something in my set. Let me know if there's something urgent. Oh, okay. Oh, good. Yeah, I live in Hawaii, and so a year and a half ago we got one of these that there was an inbound ballistic missile that was not a test. That was a very exciting morning, let me tell you. So yeah, I'm a little bit edgy about these things. All right, so creating a set, right click on a dimension, you choose it. Again, I always like to put something in my set because it makes it a lot easier to see what the impact of adding that thing to your sheet is going to be, because the default is to have nothing in your set. So always pick something, we'll say okay, and then we'll add it to our sheet, all right? And my standard way to add something is just to drop it into the middle of the sheet, because Tableau will figure out a good spot to put it. Big time saver. So now you can see that some things have changed just a little bit here, kind of a little bit hard to see, so we're gonna have to fix the colors a little bit. But the first thing is that the stuff that is in my set is at the end of the bar, and I want it to be at the other end of the bar, so the beginning of the bar. So here's one of my favorite little tricks to sort things. You just drag it up to an unused shelf. You go to the legend, drag and drop to make it happen. And then you drag it back to the spot that you wanted it. And voila, you've done a nice little sort on something that wasn't on the screen. All right, so now we've got the bars where we want them, but they're muted, right? They're overshadowed by the rest of the data. So we want to change that. We want to fix it so that the color is only going to be applied to the stuff that is in my set. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this, but I really do want to figure out if I can. No, I think the WebEx thing has disabled my zoom, so this is going to get tiny. You can double click on a shelf and start typing in an expression if you want to. It can be something simple, like I just want to add the state field and boom, hit enter and you've got it. So instead of dragging your mouse all around, you can do that. Or you can write a whole calculation here. So I'm going to say I want the sum if I'm in the set, and I can drag and drop things into there. So I just drag and drop my set. So if it's in the sets are just Boolean things, so you don't have to write any expression. It's going to evaluate to true or false automatically. In is true. So if in the set, then I'm going to put my sales in there. Oh, I'm doing profit, not sales. Let's make sure we get that right. Profit in there. Yeah, else 0, I guess. You could have just left the else off. It doesn't need it, but it does need a parenthesis at the end to make it work. Okay, so I created that. I'm going to replace my, just a little drag and drop, replace the color, and boom, we've got a nice new color palette that is excluding the stuff that's out of the set in that coloring expression. All right, so that's a fun little guy. If you like this calculation and you want to keep it, you can just drag it back to back to home over there, and it'll create it as a new field. But I don't want to do that right now. All right, so back to our viz. Now when I click on stuff, nothing happens. We have to wire up an action for this. So in our dashboards, we're going to go to actions, and I'm going to say, let's add change a set value. And we can name this and do all the fun stuff, but I'm just going to speed up and say we want to add things to our state set. And we'll say, okay. So it's pretty easy. Just choose the set that you want it to work on. And then when you start clicking, the visualization updates. Now, one of the great things about this is that I can also hold down the command key on a Mac and keep adding things to my set. So this is one of the ways that sets and parameters are very different. Sets allow me to select multiple things, whereas parameters can only have a single value at a time. We'll expand on that a little bit in just a second, but this is a very nice way to be able to create a basket of things that I want to compare, or a collection, and see how that's working against all the other stuff there. Right? So it's very easy to do something like, hey, let's grab my least profitable states and see what they're doing, right? Oh, they're having trouble with machines and binders. Right? That's probably doing a whole lot of bad stuff. But overall, other states, machines and binders are doing fine. Another tip that I want to give you, if we do something like Minnesota that looks like it's always profitable, notice that these bars turned blue. Tableau's automatically choosing a color palette based on the range of the data that's there. And since all the data is positive that we told it to look at for colors, it chose only a positive color palette. So we have to go and fix that. It's actually very easy. We just tell it to use a different color palette. We want the orange-blue diverging. And then we tell it to keep a center point of 0. That's an important addition to put on there. And then with that, you can see that in this case, the bars remain gray behind it. So the beauty here is if I unselect everything, I get colored bars because everything is now in my set. That's one of the options for the actions. And then if I click anything else, that logic is applied. So you can use these sets very easily. To get the set action running, it didn't require any calculations at all. The calculations were just around getting the colors to behave the way that I wanted them to, right? Many of you probably have set up some of these brushing examples in the past. They used to be very complex with either multiple data sources or some level of detail expressions and dual axes and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Now it's as simple as creating a set and wiring up a set action. So big improvement on how those things happen. All right, let's see another one just on a single sheet. How many of you like the Viz and Tooltip capabilities? Yeah, all right. Another exciting little tidbit. I have a patent pending for this. So I'm one of the inventors of this little feature. So pretty proud of that one. It's nice, right? The visualization is filtered based on whatever mark I'm over. But again, I'm losing the context that's behind there. So I might want to change this instead of filtering to have it change based on whether the thing I'm selecting is in or out of a set. Okay, so I'm going to first go to my tooltip sheet. It's just a simple histogram. For those of you that are really paying attention, I did cheat and I set it to a logarithmic axis so that you can actually see the data a little bit better as it goes there. It's only sample data. I allow myself to cheat. So we're going to go and do the same thing. We're going to create a set, but this time on customer name. Create a set. And again, I like to pick somebody. Oh, we have to name it too. Set customer. Okay. And again, drop it on the sheet and Tableau automatically picks a way to do it. It looks like I chose a poor customer because they have very little sales. So sometimes you don't always win, but at least I know that somebody's in because I have a color for that, right? And everybody else is out. So it looks like it's working. That's pretty nice. I'm just going to remove the tooltip from over there. And then we'll go ahead and add this as an action. Well, before I do that, I always forget, so I'm going to do it right here. I'm editing the tooltip now. I just want to get rid of this little customer name portion because it's filtering the viz and the tooltip based on the customer name. So I just took that out. So we're not going to be doing that filter anymore. And then we go up to our dashboard, or our worksheet, and add the set. There's too many little Chrome things here with this screen sharing thing. Okay, worksheet actions, there it is. We're going to add a set, I call it a set action. It says change set values down there. We'll do the same thing, just grab the new set that we just created and say okay. All right, so now when I hover, nothing happens. I could have set it to be a hover action, but I want to show some other functionality later on. So now when I click on one of these, it highlights maybe I should choose somebody that maybe had a lot of sales and they'll be able to see it. This was working better a little bit earlier. That's what happens if you make changes late in the game. You can see that it's popped up a little bit. Again, I can select multiple things and then see what the result is down there. A couple of the bars are turning a little bit blue. So it's doing its job. Well, those guys are all out there. Probably if I selected all this, it would really pop. Yeah, there we go. Oh, we need to change the order of those guys again. Drag and drop, get those going. All right. So that's pretty simple and straightforward. Wanted to point out here that we can use set actions on sheets, which is really nice. That it can make our tooltips even more powerful if we use these sets to do different calculations in there. It's one of those, like, you could do, you've selected 3 out of 100, you know, subcategories or something in there, right? You can do all kinds of other fun math to make that happen in those tooltips by using sets instead of calculations. It also is pretty nice for some other capabilities. So for example, here, I'm looking at this particular customer, Sean. Nice little histogram there in the middle, but how does technology compare overall? A lot of people don't know that you can click on the dimensions that are in your tooltip, and it'll select all the other marks on your viz that share that same dimensionality. So here, I've just added all of the customers that have bought technology into my viz for the back end. You can see there, it basically took up the entire viz. Right? I could say, well, what about just machines? You can see the viz updates right in the background while I'm doing this. So it's really kind of fun. What about just Sean, right? Because Sean has purchased some other subcategories as well. So it's really a fun way to be able to do broader analysis and comparison just in a single sheet by changing the interactivity that's in that tooltip underneath. Right, so that's just a fun little way to leverage sets. Okay, let's move on to my next example here. This is one that I've long tried to do in Tableau, and it always baffled me. I wasn't able to make it happen despite all my skills. And the situation is this. I want to grab a window of time and either filter to that window of time, or even better yet, compare that window to another window, right? So, hey, the stuff I selected, compare that to the stuff a year ago in that same window, right? I've only been able to figure out how to do it by having to manually set parameters, right? Which isn't a lot of fun. It's not very, you know, interactive. It's not very visual. So we've added a new capability that's called a parameter action. So you can use the selection to set the value of a parameter and then use those parameters throughout Tableau, right? For other calculations or other things that you might want to do. So again, just a little bit of the problem. You're like, well, you just selected a window. What's wrong with that? Well, I didn't, right? There's some of these marks here that are not selected, right? You can say, oh, you can change your action, so it's just going to select the months and not the, but what if there is a gap? What if there's a month that was missing this year and it wasn't missing last year, right? So we really need to be able to find the maximum minimum of my selection so that I can make sure I'm applying my filters to everything that's in between there. Well, the good news is that with parameter actions, we can do all this. So I'm going to go back to my handy actions dialog. I'm going to add one to change a parameter value. What's handy here is that I can actually create a parameter right in line. So this one is going to be my, I don't know, I'll call it my minimum date. It's going to be a date type. And I'll say OK. And then it asks what field do you want to set. And there's only one date field. And so it goes there. Now, this is one of the most exciting things about parameter actions is we added this ability to aggregate across all the marks. So if you selected a bunch, you could find the average of that, which allows a whole bunch of very fun analytical techniques to compare things to the average or the median or whatever. But in this case, I want to find the minimum date in my selection. And this allows me to select lots of marks. I'm still only setting a single value for that parameter. I'm not passing the bucket of values to it. I'm just passing it the minimum. All right, and then of course we have to repeat this. You can have as many things happen on a single click as you want. I'm going to create another parameter. This one's going to be the max date. You get the idea. All right, we'll make that a date. And then we have to do the same thing, but set this to the maximum. Okay? Now, before I show you that this works, I'm going to create a little reference line in here. And we're going to make it a band. And we're going to choose the minimum date to the maximum date. Okay? Now, we default our values to today. So that's why it's looking off the screen a little bit. But now if I select something, right, a single thing, my range is very small, so it's hard to see. If I select multiple things, I get this nice little window, right? It looks like it's working, right? We got a nice little visual display of my min and max state. So let's make it filter our dashboard now. Now this is where parameters kind of inherently get just a little more complex than sets. That's why I like sets a whole lot better. You have to write calculations. So we're going to do that with our sales. I'm just going to create a calculated field. Excuse me. I'm going to say sales in window. And so we're going to say sum if my order date is less than or equal to that parameter date, which you should never actually do this. I'm just doing it because, min date for a shortcut. It's much better to do a date diff on these because it's more flexible across all the different levels of detail in dates. But in this case, since I know these are both dates and not date times or anything like that, this is a great little shortcut. And I'm just going to make a new line so you guys can all follow along. Order date. No, I did this wrong. You guys didn't catch me. Greater than or equal to min date and less than or equal to max date. All right. Oh, then sales. Okay. And it auto-completed my end away. There we go. Oh, I have 2 sales? Oh, that's what happened. Okay. Thank you. You guys are following along nicely. Okay. Just a little tidbit. I'm really lazy, so I never type an else if the else is going to be null. So Tableau just takes care of that for me. It allows me to be lazy. All right, so I'm going to replace our sales with the new sales. I'm going to resort my viz, and then we'll go back and look at my my interaction there, right? And now we're getting that to filter and update and resort every time I select stuff, right? So got the functionality I wanted. It's really easy to select the range that I'm interested in there. You could also, instead of a range, if you always wanted it to be like 3 months, you could just create a parameter that says do that minus 3 months, right? So you could do it just with one parameter and build another calculation. In fact, that's what we're going to do to highlight our second window out here. So let's go ahead and do that. Working with dates and parameters is really quite wonderful. So I'm going to create another calculation here, which is my min of a year ago. And this is going to be a data add. And we're going to do a year. We're going to do -1 year because we're adding. So we have to subtract that year. And we're going to do, I'm doing the min, right? So I grab my min date. Simple little calculation there. I'm just going to highlight it so I can use it again. Okay, so we have our minimum of a year ago. I need to add that to the sheet so I can use it in a reference line. And I'm going to create another calculated field. We're going to change this to max. You can see why I like sets as well, because there's a lot less typing when I have to demonstrate them. So there we go. Oh, keep that clean. All right, we'll add that to the sheet so we can put it in a reference line. And this is one of those things I'm still in the habit of going to my axis and right-click and add reference line. A lot of people prefer to come to the analytics tab and drag the reference lines on. One of the reasons why I prefer the lower one, not just because it's hard to change my habit, but if you're on a dashboard, you don't get the analytics pane. So you have to click on the axis when you're out here. All right, so that's just a little bit. I don't know which one's preferable. It's up to you what you like. But here we can say we want to ban from the min date to the max date. Nope, that's the wrong one. I want to. Where is it? Those are parameters. Did I do something wrong? Oh, this is what's wrong. it defaulted to putting them at the year detail, and I just wanted to be the exact date. That's why I need to look at my notes. Oh, and then we created an extra annotation or line here that we need to get rid of. Come on, let me select you. Okay. All right, let's try it again. We will add a reference line. We will now use our min from a year ago on a band, min from a year ago to our max. There we go. And you can see it updated there. It shows you the display. This is another thing that's kind of fun. Like, oh, it's broken, right? Well, I set that up as a dashboard action, so it's not running on the sheet. So if I go back to the dash, well, that's probably not a good idea to grab data that's more than that we don't have the range for. All right, so very nice. I can click on a single mark. I can click on a bunch. Right, away we go. But why did that guy die? So much for the demo. Oh, I forgot to turn off my other, my filter action. Oh. There. Now it should work better. Okay, all right, so now we're highlighting the right window, but now we need to make the data for that window display down below. All right, so there's many, many ways that you could choose to do this. I'm gonna do it simply as a calculation that I'm just gonna edit the calculation that I have, the sales in window, and we're gonna call it basically the difference in the sales. So I'll grab that and duplicate it and just say, I want that minus this other stuff, but instead of the min date, I want it to be the minimum of a year ago, right? And then the max of a year ago. So basically just subtract the old stuff from the new stuff. Okay, so then we get a slightly different look to the data. We can go back and now we have a very nice interactive display where I can choose my date range. It highlights or shows the relevant data a year ago and then does the calculation for me to compare those two data sets very easily. Now, I mean, this did require 2 parameters, right? And 3 calculations along the way, but I did it in just a couple of minutes, right? And added this great new type of interactivity. So this is one where if you do have a lot of parameters in your workbooks or in your analysis, if you're doing lots of things like, hey, maybe you want to choose a reference point to do a bunch of calculations like growth rates or other things like that, I'd encourage you to see, is there a way you can create a visual way for people to define those ranges or those selections or those parameter values? Again, it could be anything from, if I click on this one, we could be saying, hey, use the value of sales there as an input to some other calculations that we're going to be doing, right? Or as I said before, if I select a range of things, we could be using the average or the max or some other aggregation of those values in order to do all kinds of different things. I've seen some wonderful examples just with maps, because you can find the latitude and longitude, the max and min, and create a little box out of that to then filter another viz to get to some other ranges and things like that. Or you could pad it so you're zooming in and out a little bit. It's really wonderful examples. And again, lots of those are just on Tableau Public. And if you find ones that are interesting, we can add lots of tags on Tableau Public so you can share what features people are using in there. It makes it a lot easier for me to find those. So please go ahead and add more tags to Tableau Public. All right, so those were my 3 little demos. Again, some of them tried to throw in some little tips along the way, give you some shortcuts on how to do different things. Hopefully give you some ideas of some other stuff that you might want to be trying when you get back home. One of the things that I struggle with is when should I use a parameter and when should I use a set? So I wanted to share some thoughts on that. First, I'll define a little bit more what sets and parameters are and then give you a little synopsis. My default is almost always to use sets just because I like them. They're fun and fascinating, and I find that they give me more flexibility in the long run. because again, the in and out of set can allow me to do all kinds of things. But think of sets just as a collection of values. And by here values, we mean the members of a dimension. So they are, they're not measures. We can't create sets of measures. Maybe I should have put that in there. You can also think of them as level of detail expressions that return a Boolean. We actually use the same LOD SQL. Like we generate the exact same SQL for these two things. So it's like the exact same code that we use for sets as well as level of detail. They can be used very efficiently in calculations. We have some really powerful ways of leveraging sets that have minimal impact on performance, which is really nice that way. There's some other details in there. So we did this today. We compared values in a single data source with that brushing example. One that we didn't do is finding relationships between fields. I mean, this could be everything from like a market basket, like for somebody that purchased this, what other things did they purchase? Or for people that bought things in this color, what other products did they purchase in other colors, right? There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do since you're not filtering the data, you're just trying to break it up in different ways. Sets typically aren't a good idea for doing these things when you're going across data sources. They can be done, but it requires a bunch of extra craziness with blending and other things to try and make it work exactly right. So it's gonna be one of the recommendations. If you are using multiple data sources, then parameters are probably gonna be a better bet. And then one of the annoyances here is that if you want to pull out, if you want to check to see if something is in the set, for example, like I selected a bunch of marks and, hey, did anybody pick the furniture products, right? Is any of that in my set? That's actually a pretty complex thing to tease out of that set itself. It is possible, but as I say here, it requires writing another level of detail expression to figure out if that item is in the set or not. We're working on that. I'll hit that a little bit later. We have some new calculations coming that'll make that a whole lot easier. Okay, so parameters, I like to think of them as really just a single value, but I add this settable constant over there because we can now, well, we always have been able to change them through controls, but now we can change them through actions and all kinds of other stuff. But the parameter is always only a single value, right? We can change it as we see fit, but it's not like a true variable where like a variable, you can add one to it, right? And it changes. You can't do that with a parameter. It's always just a single value. It can be overwritten, right? But it's not truly a variable. They can be used in a lot of calculations quite well. One of the things, as I point out, or as I did in my demo there with dates, I love using parameters when there are dates. It allows lots of flexibility. Usually you're referencing a date and you want to do offsets from that. You want to do all kinds of different things relative to that particular date. So that's a really good one. And then comparing a single value to a bunch of other values in the domain there, it's very good for that kind of thing as well. And again, that's one of the things I just pointed out with sets. Like if you're trying to see, is this particular thing in my set? It's very difficult to do that today. And it's also one of the things it can do is aggregate measure values. Didn't really show that. I used the date example, but again, if you select a bunch of stuff, you can find the max, min, sum, different things like that out of that range that you've selected. They are not super efficiently used. There's some things that we can do with parameter actions. One of the aggregations that we can do if you have a string in your selection is we can actually concatenate all those values together. It's extremely powerful to be able to do that because then you can look to see if something is in that selection and other things like that. But then you have to use this contains function on the back end, which is not very efficient as well. So that's just one of the gotchas there. Again, if it's a small selection, small data, whatever, then it's probably going to be fine. If people select 1 million marks and we try and concatenate them all together, right, that's going to be a bit of a problem, most likely. Okay, so that's a little bit of background on the two different things. So here's a couple of rules of thumb. These aren't hard and fast by any means. There's a lot of overlap in these two feature sets. So a lot of times you can do it either way, or you can combine the two very well to do all kinds of fun stuff as well. But if the values that you're trying to use, if they're already in a dimension, like they exist in your database in a dimensional field, then probably sets are the way to go. With the little exception there that I added on, you need to be using one data source, right? If you're using multiple data sources, then the rules change a little bit. If you're trying to group together multiple selected values, then that's a good indication that sets are the way to go. Because again, parameters are single valued. And again, I find them simpler in most cases if you're using dimensions as the basis for your calculations, interactivity, et cetera. I find the sets a whole lot easier. Parameters, again, if I'm using dates, my go-to is parameters. If I'm using numbers, my go-to is parameters. I probably should have put that in the slide. If you want to, oh, there it's the next one. Yeah, if you want a measure to be used as a variable for other calculations, you're going to want to use a parameter. Multiple data sources, or again, if you need to aggregate values, then parameters are the way to go, right? Again, both of them can be used now in actions, so they're very powerful that way. You can use sets and calculations, parameters and calculations, all that kind of stuff. You can even use parameters to define the set, which is actually very interesting. Lots of exciting things you can do there. But that gives hopefully a little bit of context of some of the things that you can do when you might be choosing one or the other. I emphasize the sets because, again, I see people using lots of parameters because that was all we offered you for a long time. And now that we have some new tools in the tool shed, it's time to start giving the sets more of a try. All right, so a couple of things related to these that are coming soon. We have a couple of enhancements in beta. There's a question.
Yeah, sorry, question about the sets. As far as validating whether it's in a set or not, is that captured at all if you turn on the supporter?
No. So I'll repeat the question for the people on the line. So the question was whether something is in or out of a set. Is that captured in the performance recorder at all? And the answer to that is no. You could probably tease it out from the SQL that's in there, but it's not an obvious thing by any means. I find the easiest way to figure out what's in and out of the set, and I'll show you this right now, is simply to create a sheet with the set. Where'd my set go? There it is. Oh, this is the wrong data source. Let's grab the other one. All right, so here's my state set. You throw that on the in or out side over there, and then you find the base field of it. Which one did I use here? State. That's one of the reasons why I love naming my sets based on the field that they're based on. So you can just do that, and it's in and out, or you could flip it around if you wanted to see it the other way. Either way, that's simply a little list like that is the best way to see what's in or out, validate it. Okay. We have a couple of exciting calculations in store. I alluded to this earlier. We have an in operator that's coming that's long been asked for. So you can say in, and then you say what the member or the string is that you're looking for, and then what field you want to see if it's in, or what set of values that are out there. So that is going to alleviate one of those problems with sets, trying to look up the particular value there. It's also going to help for a whole bunch of other cases. A lot of you use groups on your Tableau server, and you're trying to figure out if somebody is in a collection of groups or not. You're going to be able to use it for that type of thing as well. So it'll simplify a whole bunch of server scenarios. So that's exciting. That is probably going to come. Well, it will come next year. It's not in these things I'm talking about are not in this beta. With parameters, we're adding a couple of things, and I've lost them. That's why I have notes, right? That's why you write it all down. We have, the two exciting things. That's right. We have the ability coming to set the default parameter value when you load the workbook. So you can say set it to the maximum date that's in my data set, for example, right? Chuck's happy now.
Full dynamic parameter?
That is not a full dynamic parameter. I know. Hang on a second, because I said there were 2 exciting features. So that's going to be the first one. Open a workbook, and you can programmatically set what the default value for the parameter is. The other one related to that, which is going to come after it, is the ability to load the domain of the parameter when you open the workbook. So it'll be based on a particular field. We'll query the database when you load the workbook, get that whole domain, and that'll be in your pick list or whatever it is that you want as the possible values for your parameter. And so that, we think that gives us like 99% of what full dynamic parameters are. So hopefully you guys will start using those and let us know. You can look for those next year. You can come to the conference that's coming up next month and give some of those things I alluded to a spin, see some of them in action, which will be a lot of fun. One item on sets that we're adding that'll make it even more powerful is that we're adding what we call a set membership control. It's a big mouthful for a little feature. Basically, it's a quick filter for a set where you get to choose who's in or out of the set right from a little quick filter type control. And so that really unlocks a whole bunch more interactivity or analytical capabilities. And it also makes sets and parameters even more overlapping. So it'll be even harder to choose which one you want to have. All right. So that wraps up the stuff that I wanted to talk about today. And hopefully that's going to help you on your journey to seeing and understanding data and helping others along that path as well. If you have any questions about this, I'll be sticking around afterwards for quite a bit and would love to hear some of your feedback or other things you guys are working on as well. So thank you. And now it's Chris Toomey. I was trying to remember who was next.
Do we want to take a quick 5-minute break? Take 5 minutes. 5 minutes, grab me a beer. All right. It's only 5 minutes though.
That's all. No, it's fine right there. Yeah, it's like, I don't. Right. Well, even then, she's recording it. She's probably well into it. That would be awesome. We gotta go to work on Monaco. Tough. I guess we're gonna have to stay ahead. So got that CPE budget? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Bryn's managing all of it. I mean, she knows. We're just gonna kind of leave it alone. Yeah. We're just gonna leave it alone until like, it actually, like, I always wondered, like, actually. Well, so what they did was they got the box and they added two. I think the box they bought I think there's at least 3G out there. Like, oh, really? That's impressive. I don't know how they. I remember from looking at remote sites, they're surprising how the cell companies pretty good at editing nowhere. As long as they don't have think those are, I think their hardware is like $500. It's not cheap. It's also not.
Well, I mean, it has to be able to run in pretty rugged environments. That's expected. That's awesome news.
Yeah, it's, yep, cool. All right, hopefully this all. Yeah, they're canned, but they're also like. Thanks. trunk. No, it just.
Be the mom and be like,
No, it's fine.
yeah.
Oop, my whistle didn't really work that well. All right. I don't want to be the guy standing in between you and the like social and drinking hour, so we can go ahead and get started. Keith, I'm looking at you. He's not looking at me. Okay. Cool. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris. I am a solutions architect here at Mapbox. Before I tell you what that means and why you're listening to me at a Tableau user group, does anybody know anything at all about Mapbox? You work here. Anybody? Yeah? Other than we've got a cool spot and we give you food? Okay. So for those of you who don't know who Mapbox is, all of you who are Tableau users are actually intimately familiar with Mapbox because we are the maps of Tableau. So these maps that you're seeing here, if you look down here in the corner, the technology that gives you those fast and fluid maps comes from us. We work really closely with Kent and Francois to make sure that we can help you build really great interactive visualizations with really great data. So it's not just the maps, it's the data too. So let's say we move this away and come down to states. Those shapes also come from us because it's important to Tableau that you have the best representation of the world, and we help them give that to you. So Mapbox and Tableau have a really long relationship. We've been working together for years now. And the original integration looked something like this. People had really beautiful custom maps, like this one here, which is built by one of our cartographers named Madison. It's called the Bubble. And it's a combination of terrain and really highly stylized information. So you can build really beautiful backgrounds to highlight your data. That's what Mapbox does. We help people build fantastic applications that have to do with location. So what are we here? What am I here to talk to you about? So I'm here to help you take your mapping experience to the next level. Like, we know that Tableau has shipped a lot of really great features involving geography. This is just the lists that I could remember, and I talked with the PMs about this. For those of you who don't know, Kent Martin, who runs the Maps team, is Canadian. So I threw in the obligatory Toronto Raptors GIF, also to celebrate just how many features they've shipped. Everything from spatial joins and heat maps to the vector maps you see, PostGIS connections, distance, Esri geodatabases, and soon 2019.4 being able to actually have that mapping hot swapping in WebEdit. So they've been really on fire lately. Also, speaking of being on fire, one word of caution, don't ever challenge Kent to an athletic activity because he will light you up both in real life and on Twitter. I got smoked in the 40-yard dash at Tableau conference last year. It wasn't even close. So I guess if you think about it, that's a lot. Like, Tableau makes a lot of this easy out of the box. But what if that box doesn't really work? Right? What if how many of you work or have worked in the public sector? How many of you work in financial, banking, fintech? How many of you work in healthcare? How many of you touch credit card transactions? How many of you are afraid of the phrase HIPAA or PII, right? How many of you work for IT departments that have really secure networks or want to have really secure networks or say that they have really secure networks, right? Tableau can be hard to deploy in those types of environments, especially if you have to reach out to the open internet. Also, there are times where Tableau's data that's baked in isn't sufficient to do your job. Marc gave that fantastic talk he just gave was about Superstore, and Superstore deals with individual customers. And we know that individual customers live somewhere. They have business addresses. not to, put the cart before the horse here, but there is no address field in Tableau. You can do states and cities and zip codes, but what if you just want to know where those people are? You can't, or it's really hard to do. So this is what I'm going to talk about today, is how do we make this entire experience of Tableau with respect to location easier? So let's first talk about the offline and the secure environment, because that's where this starts and ends. Tell me if you have at any point experienced or heard one of your colleagues say any of these things. The maps are slow. Does anybody know what the Tableau Maps IP address is? How about the URL? We don't like external services here, full stop. I need that form filled out in triplicate. When I was consulting with Slalom, we actually had to access Tableau Desktop through Citrix inside of a secure environment. So it was 3 steps away. So everything took forever. So one, proxies are kind of gross. Tableau has one. I'm not supposed to tell you that, but they have one. Every time you move one piece of the network away, you add latency, which means that your data shows up slower. And we all know that speed kills. It's also it's good, but can also be really bad. Does anybody know what the over-under is for people paying attention to the visualizations you make? Mark? 10 seconds. If you can't get them in 10 seconds, they will leave. Game over. All that hard work, gone, toast. And sometimes that 10 seconds is out of your control. Also, Mapbox, who powers those maps, the CloudFront IP list, I would show it to you, but I don't have an hour to walk through all those IP addresses. Not to mention, it's just hard to do. So how do we solve this? How do we make it easy for these vital business activities to happen? How do you put your data on a map? Because if that's where you want to know where your customers are, you want to know where these things happen. It's a shipped feature in Tableau and you can't use it. What do you do? I mean, I've done that. It's nope, sorry, quit, I'm done. Instead, we have a feature called Atlas. It's Mapbox that runs on your infrastructure. It's literally Mapbox in a box. It's the same data, it's the same styles, it's the same tools, it's the same APIs, it's everything that you expect, so that behind the scenes it doesn't look any different. That is actually Atlas shipped in what we call the field kit or the flyaway kit. Where's Hannah? Is Hannah here? Hi. Yeah. Where the field kit's in Kinshasa now? Is that right? Yeah, the field kit is deployed to Kinshasa to help with visualization of the Ebola outbreak. We can put Atlas anywhere. So if we can put it in the middle of nowhere, Kinshasa, Zaire, we can put it in your infrastructure. And it will actually sometimes run faster. Don't tell the platform team I said that. It's, for example, I'll actually show it to you. So this is the Tableau thing I was just looking at. This is Atlas running on my laptop. I can create a style or I can open this one up. Same vector maps, you'll notice that this says localhost. It's just running in a Docker container on my machine. So if you have a virtual machine, you have a server under your desk, you have a Mac Mini, you have anything that can run Docker, you're in business. 1 person, 2 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, we can solve this problem for you and let you get back to the good work that you're doing. So that's kind of a boring and okay, fine. That's great. Oh, I just showed you the demo. But that custom map that I just showed in Tableau Desktop, Tableau actually expects that the URLs you give it look a certain way. All right, so let's say you have Atlas. You have this fantastic mapping thing running on your own infrastructure, and you want to drop a map in from something, something, something at yourcompany.com. Tableau will be like, yeah, nice try, not going to happen. So it's a bit of a poor implementation, but we also know that Tableau just wants to expect the right things, and we can't predict what your URL is going to be. So because that expectation you're left with kind of one option, and that's to go and edit the Tableau map source. Alan, what's your experience with editing that XML?
6 years until
Yeah, I think I've done it about the same amount of times as Alan does. Every time I screw something up, I can copy and paste and I still get it wrong. Also, nobody wants to have to deal with XML. I actually don't even know what the acronym stands for anymore. You have to find the custom map, you have to export the XML, you have to hand edit it, you have to hope you get it right, you have to save it, you have to re-import it, and then cross your fingers and hope that you got it right, because if you don't, Tableau will just say error. We want to make this easy for you. So in development right now is the Tableau plus Atlas CLI. And CLI is generous because we only expose one interface. It's one command that makes you go through the exact same things you would do with a regular custom map, and then we take care of all the heavy lifting for you. We'll write the XML for you, we'll put it in your Tableau repository, and then you can set it as your default map. So the next time you open Tableau, you don't have to figure out and switch, it just knows. Tableau says, oh, Tableau's on, go get my maps from over here instead of going from over here. So I'll show it to you. So normally what you do in a custom map is you come to Studio, you go to Tableau, and then you get this URL and you put it in. And I'll spare you the pain of seeing it fail because it's going to fail. Instead, what we'll do here is we take our little tool here, assuming it'll let me write it. I think oh, there we go. We'll get the one thing you have to know is where your Tableau repository is. Does everybody know what that is and where that lives? Yeah? Okay. So we'll run a little command line and we just say generate. I only need one. Put my Tableau repository in there. I'll get my style URL. I'll paste it and I'll say, we'll call this testing. What this will do is one, write out all of that stuff so you don't have to. And two, it will make sure that your URL is valid, because sometimes it may look like you may be on the right network or not on the wrong one, or you fat-fingered it. URLs are long and they can be difficult to work with. This will make sure that it's the right one. So you don't have to, again, don't have to worry about it. So then we can just open up desktop, go to the same dropdown we were looking for before. Oops. So that's for the last demo. Custom map running off of a map server on my machine. It's that simple. And then I didn't even actually know this existed until last week. If you say this, the next time you open it up, that's where you're going to go. Trying to make it easier for you to do your work and not have to worry about all of the other security IT stuff that your company pays people a lot of money to solve. You get paid to do visualization and analytics. We want to help you do that. Okay. So now honestly, that probably was a little bit boring. No one really wants to talk about IT. No one really wants to talk about networking. Most people at Tableau want to talk about data, right? Everything revolves around visualizing information. So you know that Tableau has all of these geographic roles: cities, states, MSAs, airports, nuts, codes, most of which are provided by us. But these are kind of it. If you're trying to bring in your data that has a column called state, Tableau knows where to put it. If you have a column called zip, Tableau knows where to put it. But what if you have all you have is an address, a delivery address, a shipping address. How do you get that information in there? You can parse it and you can aggregate it up to something, but that's not really the precision that sometimes your analytics needs. Sometimes you need to enrich that information through a process we call geocoding. And there's two ways to do this. We call this forward, where you give me text and I give you back a location, and reverse, which is you give me a location and I give you back text, which can be really nice to say, like, I know this thing is here, like I've captured something off of my phone or a car or something, and I want to know kind of what that is. Is it in the state of Washington? Is it in the state of California? Is it in zip code, whatever? So it's kind of a nice shortcut to help create data where there wasn't data before. Now, if you are on the Twitters, you may have seen this post by Sarah Battersby, the Maps Overlord. She wrote a blog post about geocoding and Tableau prep with TabPy. Now, Sarah is like super smart, which is why she has earned that title, Maps Overlord. Some of the stuff she's like, geocoding is just the bottom of the barrel. She's done some amazing stuff. So if you take nothing home today, go read the things that she's written. You will level up your location analytics skills tenfold. The issue with that is that a lot of times most geocoding providers don't really let you do this. They work on what's called an ephemeral geocode, which means kind of like I'm on an app like this and I type the address and it puts me on the map and I figure out how to navigate there. I'm done with that activity, the geocode goes away. That's called an ephemeral one. What we're talking about is a permanent geocode where you're taking it and you're caching it, you're putting it in a database. It's a complicated thing because that data comes from somewhere. It may be licensed by somebody. You may have had to buy it from somebody. You don't just get to store it. And at 10s and 20s, Tableau public scale, you may be fine. Hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, working with real customer data, this can get really complicated really quick. And if you start scraping somebody like Google, they're going to give you a phone call. That's the other thing. There's other providers out there. There's people who do this. Geocodio is a fantastic service, but only if your customers live in the United States. It's not free. None of these things are free, but it's like, they're great. But what if you have someone who lives in Canada? Or you expand into Europe? Hello? What about Google? Not allowed. Don't do it. Like, I thought you could do this. I read the terms of service, and then I went and hid under my kitchen table. So it can be done, but you have to be really careful with this because we want this data, but you don't want to be using it for commercial purposes if you haven't licensed it correctly. It's a really bad time to get that phone call from a lawyer. But, surprise, Mapbox geocoding is for everybody. International coverage, down to the address, store it as much as you want. So we've taken what Sarah was working on. We were actually working on it in parallel to, without knowing it. And we've created a way for you to do the same process, to get this same geocoding performance, to get this information anywhere in the world in 3 lines of code. Now, how many of you are familiar with or have written Python before? How many of you have ever written R? Sorry about that. Like Tableau, we want this to be usable by everybody. You shouldn't have to know what a for loop looks like. You should just I got data, I want to stick it in something, I want to get the data back. That's what we've built. We have built a geocoder that does forward and reverse at scale. So if you have 100 addresses or 1,000,000 addresses, we can get you back that data quickly. And all you have to do is write three lines of code. What's really nice about this is that, one, it's simple for everybody. You can just, the top part of the script, boilerplate. Bottom part of the script, boilerplate. Those 3 lines, if you've ever used TabPy, which is what this is based on, what this does is it actually for prep mimics the published function. So in desktop, you can say, I can write this really great machine learning model or whatever, and then I can publish it to TabPy, and then all I have to do in my calculation is say, like, query, whatever the cool name of my function is, pass in my data, and it's back. Prep doesn't have that. It does now. The way we've built this is so that you can work with your data scientists, with your other experts and engineers. They can write you a script. That geocode.py looks like this. That's like, this is a decent amount of work. So you don't have, so you can just, and then you can just publish it up to TabPy and then just call the function that you want. So you don't actually have to know the Python behind the scenes. You can just get the data that you need. So I'll show this to you right now. So here's prep. Let's connect to data. I'm just going to make this easy. I did a demo like this last year at Tableau conference, and I crashed and burned really hard. The demo gods did not like me, so I'm going to keep this really simple. These are just two addresses. That's actually my house where I grew up in the Tri-Cities in Washington, and that's actually my house in Seattle. So if you're ever in Seattle, come say hi. I'll buy you a beer. We're going to add a script. We'll connect to TabPy here. Localhost 9004. We'll connect, that's the wrong one. We'll connect to the file that we want, which is that prep.py I just showed you. And I think it's prep geo. And in goes the address. Out comes what we thought the address was. So this is actually this is not what we use it for, but if you need some sort of address standardization-ish, that first column, that's what that does. It reads back to you what we think you told us. Accuracy, we want to make sure that, address, dots move around the map. We want to make sure that we're giving you as much metadata about this so you can make the decision about what's the right location. Relevance, latitude, and longitude. Whether this, so this is just two addresses. So you say like, oh, that's great. What if I have 10? What if I have 20? What if I have 150,000? Well, we have a little helper. It's a little Google spreadsheet where we can tell you exactly how long it's going to take to geocode that much information and what's your rate limit going to have to be. So when you come to us and say, hey, Chris, that's something I really need it now. And you say, well, how much data do you have? I got to geocode 1,000 rows a day or 10,000 rows a day. I can tell you within 1 to 2% what your rate limit needs to be, so you can just turn it on and get back to your job. It's pretty simple. That's the power of Mapbox, is that our platform is global. We engineer it to be low latency and fast. So again, you don't have to worry about it. And for those of you who said, well, that's great. You showed us all that stuff with Atlas. What if I'm still in that constrained network? Atlas does this too. So this is really for everybody. Global data, high performance, highly accurate, 3 lines of code. And the best of all is that for those of you who like, all right, well, how do I deploy this? You can put this up into AWS or whatever, run it as a service, and it will just scale because it's running in Docker. You can just put as much compute power as you want behind it. So again, you don't have to worry. The idea is that we've engineered this to make it as easy as possible for you and your colleagues to get back to doing the things you need to do. Okay. Cool, just showed you that demo. So just to quickly close on that, these are things that anybody can use. They can be deployed anywhere. Scale isn't a question here. Obviously, this particular thing does forward and reverse. But what's really cool about this is that it's essentially the web data connector for everything. If any of you have ever tried a web data connector from Tableau, it's kind of a weird experience. It's like querying all that information is hard. You got to wait in desktop. Prep's a really great place to do this. So isochrones, routing, machine learning models, whatever, as long as it's exposed as API, you can do it at scale. Whereas a web data connector, you're kind of limited to probably 150,000 rows before you just decide to get up and go get a cup of coffee. This method works for any API at scale. So that was kind of a bonus. We didn't actually know it was going to work that way, and we were like, that's cool. So that's it. That's kind of that's where we are right now. This was kind of a test balloon talk for the stuff we're going to talk about at conference. So we'll have a little bit more to say about all of these things at Tableau conference. Alice is available now. Like I said, we've put it in the field. There's a number of companies that use it. Everything else you're seeing here will be available to you at Tableau conference in November. We'll have a couple other cool things to show you that I don't want to spoil because Hannah's going to give this talk and I want to make sure she has the really cool stuff to show. So with that, obviously I work here, so that's my email, that's my Twitter handle, here to help. Any questions you might have about doing these things at any point in time, just get in touch with us. We're here to help. We're really excited about our partnership with Tableau and the Tableau community. It's one of the reasons why we really enjoy working with the company is because of the people who do this great work. So appreciate your time listening to me, and I'll be here to answer any questions you might have. I've also done a fair amount of hacking on Tableau things. If you don't want to talk location, we can talk hacking on Tableau and Tableau server too. So thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate your time. Thanks. That's okay. I just need to set up. Okay.
How many people are going to the Tableau conference in Vegas? All right, we find someone with a hand raised. I meant to go say hi and have a beer with that person.
Coming? Yeah. Yay. Component graphic with car may not be configured properly. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexander Mao. I'm currently a senior data consultant at Action Analytics and work at Apple. Apple is our customer. I'm a Tableau Social Ambassador. Today, I'm also going to talk about the set and the parameter actions in the wild. There's some similar to the talk by Marc, but our examples may be a little different. So what are set and the parameter actions? I think Marc has talked quite a bit about it. Yeah, I'm here just to maybe repeat some of his talk. but maybe it's good for you to remember. Set and the parameter list, okay? Not the whole parameter functions, but inside the parameter, it's the list that we'll be using to define a group of values, a collection of values. It's quite like set, right? However, they are a little different. I will talk about it. And with actions, it means the action of mouse. We use mouse action to drive certain values, to send some values to the view and to change them, okay? So we do so through the set of values or a list of values, a list of parameter values. Yeah. In this way, we do not have to use menu, which when we do the old way is to select one value from a drop-down value, right? A drop-down list of value. And with actions, we just use mouse to click some point, and then we send the value to the view, which is under the hood is similar to you drop down a menu and select value. So what's the difference of set and the parameter actions? In my opinion, there isn't too much. The biggest difference is the set defines the set action. Well, the set defines a set of values from a dimension, which is available within a single data source, right? So if all your workbook is built on a single data source, then you can use the set action everywhere. However, parameter list defines a set of arbitrary values, and it can be available to the entire workbook, no matter what data source you are using. So in general, parameter works in a larger scope. Okay, that's all about the theory. Now I'm going to show a few examples. Okay, since we are at the Mapbox, so some of the examples are based on map applications. How come it's a little slow? Oh, maybe I'm not sharing the screen, but share the application. New share. Okay, I understand now. Okay, I'm sharing the application instead of the screen. Oh. So here is an example of parameter applications. Okay, this can be done also in set action, but there isn't much difference here. So we are dividing the map, the US, into 4 regions, and we can click any of the region, okay, and we can drill down and see all the states and that region. Yeah. So here, so I'm using some dot here just to try to show those smaller states. Otherwise, we may not be able to see them. Yeah. These are the bigger states. The next one, this is built by can flourish, yeah, is a Tableau Ambassador. So this is a very interesting application of the parameter actions. So you just click any of the city, and you will see the flight paths to other places. Okay, yeah. So this is another map-based example. Yeah. This one. Oh, how to set up the parameter? Okay. Sure. So it's just we changed the origin of the starting point. Okay, origin. This is the parameter. Yeah. Origin. You know, when we click a city, it will take the latitude and the longitude from that point, and then send to the, you know, just remake the line. Okay. So here is a very simple pie chart that some people may laugh about it. Yeah, we don't use it very much, but here I just use this example to show what we can do with set actions. So this allows us to view the subcategories within office supplies. We are using the Superstore data set, right? So we can see, and the furniture, we have all these subcategories. Yeah. A very interesting example here. This one is a little classic. I think many people may have seen this already. Yeah. But let me show it again. Okay. Okay, so we can, in this example, we can use the parameter action to expand, to drill down into the states from any of the 4 regions, okay? And to check out all the sales within that region. So yeah, it's a, this is I think a very practical applications. Many people like this one. Okay, here is a example I created just to show some other applications. So this could be some highly summarized results. Okay, so these are the sales number in each region, right? So, you know, we can show people this, you know, just give some high executives a summarized view. But if they are interested, we can go into more details. Okay. So that's from here. So voila. So we are creating a viz in the tooltip to show this is the West region. So we're showing where the states in this region is, and what are the sales number in that in those states. Okay, those are Western states. Okay, so here give people a drill down kind of view. Yeah. This is created to use viz in Tooltip. And so if they say, hey, stop, and I want to, click on those things, and we cannot, the tooltip, unfortunately, we cannot click on them, right? So I create a link here just to go to the dashboard of the same view. Here we go. Yeah. So this is the dashboard, and we can view, click around, yeah, and to see more details. Yeah. So, well, here are the examples. If you like, I can create the, go into more details to see it, to show you guys how this have been built. Let me do this one, okay? So this one is been done with, okay, with two pie chart. So view is too big. Okay, get rid of this. And let's create another one, which is quite similar. Duplicate. And yes. So, well, this is pretty simple, okay? Well, we created first a use category to create a set, okay? It includes all the three categories in the set. And then we use this condition to create the if in this set, then show the subcategories. Okay, this is the second one. Conditional set category, yeah. So we can see we have pie chart here, but they are all of the same color. Let's make it all black. And we want to make the background black as well. Yes. Now, let's say simple as put this in the background. And we'll make this float on top of the first one. Zero, 0. In the 600. Voila. And we want to make this transparent. Yeah. All right. And now we will use that action, which is a set action. Okay. Use the one on top to drive the one let's try it. Okay. Oh. Oh, yes. That's right. Yes, it's there. It's kind of too small. Yeah. Okay. Voila. Yeah. Thanks. All right, that's my talk. Okay. Thank you very much.
You guys want to see one more? How will you stick around if people want to ask?
Sure.